Thank you. So my presentation today is titled, Will Customary Land Rights Hold in Ghana? And it's scaled out of work that is already published in Cogent Social Sciences and was titled Custom, Modernity, and Stability of Land Rights in Ghana, an empirical legal review. The same work, some of it was carried out and published in the Conversations, entitled Customary Land Rights, Customary Land Governance Hold in Ghana, but times are changing and not for the better. I also granted an interview on this same research work to the South African Broadcasting Corporation somewhere around July this year. So basically, this is the work that I'm going to present today. First of all, let us try to understand the context, the Ghanaian context that we are talking about. So Ghana basically has a dual, or if you like, some would say a multiple kind of land governance system. So the state owns about 22% of all lands in Ghana, and about 78% is in customary hands. And when we talk about the customary ownership, that could either be in the hands of individuals, it could be in the hands of chiefs, or it could be in the hands of first settlers, who are often known as Tendames in the northern Ghana and other places. If we take the customary governance or the customary lands, there's 78% of the lands we are talking about. A portion of that is under what we call centralized governance. So these are communities that traditionally had a chieftaincy system in place traditionally, whilst a certain portion of the land, the customarily owned lands, are also under acephalous systems. And these are communities that traditionally did not have chieftaincy systems in place. And so the centralized communities are largely within southern Ghana and also largely within the Akan or Twi-speaking areas of Ghana. And the acephalous communities are largely within northern Ghana, Greater Accra, and the Volta regions of Ghana. And for the acephalous communities, even though they didn't have any centralized governance system, the Tendanes, who are mostly the first settlers, had authority over the lands and govern it as such. Now, if you take the customary systems again, the allodial title, which in Ghana is the highest, kind of authority you can talk of in land, is held in customary allodium. And mostly what it means is that the allodial title is power exercised by chiefs and to some extent some clan heads. But if you take the acephalous societies, the customary allodium is held either by individuals, by families, or by clans. So these are the distinctions between these two main customary governance systems that we have. And depending on the customary system in place, there are implications for the stability of the land rights that we are going to talk about. Theoretically, there are about 4 main models of customary land governance that have been discussed. The first one is what we know as the minimalist approach to customary land governance. And in terms of the minimalist approach, what basically happens is that the state recognizes the customary rights of the land users as they exist within and between different ethnic groups. So it doesn't interfere with, the state doesn't interfere with what already exists on the ground. The second model is known as the agency model. And with the agency model, the state basically identifies a particular individual or a group of individuals and then empowers these individuals to act as the representatives of the customary groups in all land dealings. And then the third model is the group incorporation model, where a group of actors in the land governance space can incorporate as a formal legal entity and engage directly in the acquisition, the holding, and the management of land in accordance with legal and constitutional provisions. And then the last one is the Decentralized Land Governance Board, or the Decentralized Land Boards. And this involves the transfer of authority over land, mostly from tribal chiefs to district and sub-district land boards. In this research, we were able to establish that the Ghanaian system is transitioning towards the agency model, as most chiefs and first settlers are beginning or are more or less empowered by the state to act as the representatives of the customary groups in all land dealings. This study was basically a review of secondary data or secondary materials. And so what we sought to do was to understand the coupled effects of modernity, custom, and custom on the stability of land rights within the Ghanaian setup. And so what we did was that we reviewed various cases from the superior courts of Ghana, that's from the high courts all the way to the Supreme Courts, and tried to understand the principles and the precedents that the courts laid down in respect of specific land cases, and especially as they relate to rights to use land, rights to sell land, rights to transfer land, amongst others. And then we also reviewed some empirical studies to determine the functioning of customary land rights in Ghana and elsewhere. And the main purpose for the study was for us to establish the extent of destabilization of the bundles of land rights available to land users. In fact, we do recognize that the bundle of rights metaphor has been criticized by some other scientists as a bare bones metaphor. But we think that these bundles of rights are those that are legally recognizable and enforceable by the legal regime. And that is why we decided to stick with these bundles of rights for this particular research. Now, so when we talk about custom, what is custom? And how did we conceptualize custom? So custom is defined as the values and practices, norms, and other ancestral expressions that underpin the moral structure of everyday life in a particular society. So given this understanding, we applied custom in our study to mean the communally owned lands where members of a common ancestry exercise rights over a piece of land which is obtained through early settlement or conquest. Then again, we conceptualize modernity as any effort that seeks to simplify transactions in land through formalization and the market mechanism of demand and supply in support of large-scale commercial production. And we conceptualize stability as certainty, intensity, and duration over which show the completeness of land rights and the length of time an individual can use a particular piece of land. So these are the three main elements of the work. Then in terms of the bundles of rights, we looked at access, use, management, exclusion, and alienation. So access basically is the right to enter into an area of land exclusively for that purpose. So it's just entry. You don't touch anything. You are not there to withdraw any resource, to use anything, or for that matter, you just entry. And then use or withdrawal right refers to the right to obtain resources such as timber, firewood, or other forest products and remove them from the forest or from a particular piece of land. Management is the right to regulate the internal use patterns or transform the resource. And exclusion is the right of the right holder allows the rights holder the power to exclude others and outsiders who fail to comply with management rules. And alienation is the right to relinquish your interest in a particular piece of land. So these are the critical terms that govern the study. We try to understand the evolution of customary land rights in Ghana from the colonial all the way to the post-colonial period and the contemporary Ghana. What we realized was that during the colonial period, customary land governance was seen to be a disincentive to commercial agriculture, exploitation of timber and mineral resources. And so the approach adopted by the colonizers was to try to confiscate all what was termed as ownerless lands. And so the policy of indirect rule was introduced, and that policy tried to endorse the chieftain account of customary land law. But what we realized was that most often the chieftain account of customary land law could actually contradict the generally accepted understanding of customary law. Then the post-colonial period, again, of course, even though power was now in the hands of Ghanaians, the authorities again felt that, look, they needed to find ways to weaken the financial strength of the chiefs, because the chiefs drew their financial strength basically from the lands. So one of the main strategies adopted was to weaken their financial base. And what was done was that they transferred the management of stool lands and revenues from all local courts of chiefs to newly established local courts. In recent times, government has sought variously to reform and improve the efficiency and productivity of land in Ghana. A number of interventions have been implemented in that respect. And mostly the intention is that they want to reduce rural poverty and inequality, improve agricultural performance, and the performance of farming systems based on customary tenure. Most of the efforts that have been implemented in contemporary times have been criticized as being revisionist, and that they seek to reconstitute customary land governance systems from what was hitherto known to all of us. So the main driver of reforms in Ghana today is the National Land Policy. And its goal, overarching goal, is that it aims at the judicious use of the nation's land and all its natural resources by all sections of the Ghanaian society in support of various socioeconomic activities. You look at the goal and the accompanying objectives, and you basically come to the conclusion that the effort is to liberalize the land market and make land readily available to various land users. In the process, the land administration project was implemented, and which project has led to the establishment of customary land secretariats across different parts of Ghana, and which customary land secretariats now have put on that agency model that I initially alluded to, and more or less engage in all land transactions on behalf of the customary groups. What did we find, having undertaken the review of legal documents and empirical studies? In respect of access, we realized that it remains the most basic right, and it's limited to access only, and it's available to all rights holders as well as outsiders. And the only restrictions are that sometimes for some communities, there are some religious or cultural restrictions to access. So for instance, you go into a community and you are told that you cannot go to a certain forest on a certain day, because it is believed that on that day, the gods would come out to also have something to do, or you cannot get into a water body on a particular day, a certain day or something like that. So basically access is restricted on cultural or religious grounds. Legally, what we established was that there's no ownerless land in Ghana. And so any land which has that semblance of ownerlessness often would accrete to the nearest customary group. And so there's no ownerless land in Ghana. And this was established as far back as 1913, when the colonial powers wanted to declare certain lands in Ghana ownerless, and through a popular case known as Oforiatta versus Atafua. And long possession of vacant land does not translate into ownership. So You may be in possession of a vacant land for a very long time, but for as long as the owner can prove that that land belongs to him, your possession of the land can never translate into ownership. Our main observation is that there's no notable changes except in land privately owned. So lands that are privately owned, people can restrict entry to their privately owned properties in recent times by erecting fence walls and sometimes using land guards, amongst others. In terms of use and withdrawal, all the people who have use rights mostly would have access rights. And then it is the right to withdraw resources from the land. So maybe to pick share fruits, to harvest food, to harvest firewood, for snail picking and other things. These are rights that various customary groups would wield. It's available to individuals who have management, exclusion, and alienation rights. And use and withdrawal rights are perpetual, they are inheritable by members of the land owning groups. So these are rights that cannot be taken away from the land owning groups. Legally, land cannot be alienated without the prior consent of the head and elders of the land owning family, clan, or community. So you may be a member of the land owning group and therefore have maybe a usufructuary right to the land to use it for, in perpetuity. But to alienate the land, you would need the prior consent of the head of family or the head of clan or the community to be able to alienate your interest in that land. Our main observation is that there's rapid changes in the mode of access. Traditionally, the main mode of access had been through grants. So around the colonial period, many people accessed land through grants. In contemporary times, or if you like, the post-colonial period up to the 1990s, early 2000s, a lot of people accessed land through sharecropping arrangements and other tenancies, such as rentals. But in recent times, this is transitioning towards purchases. So people who really want land for whatever purpose, be it agriculture or whatever, are interested in purchasing the land outright. And so the relationships that are evolved, that are coming out of these processes is that increasingly access to land for use and withdrawal of resources is becoming more of contractual. So people have to enter into contractual relationships to be able to access land for use and withdrawal of resources. When it comes to management rights, the rights to access, it means that you must have rights to access and withdraw resources to then be able to manage a particular piece of land. And it entails the formulation of rules, procedures, and standards for the use of a particular resource. And it's exercised by people who hold usufructuary rights, the head of family, and tenants, as well as lessees. So all these actors can exercise management rights over a piece of land. And the main legal finding was that secondary rights holders possess significant power over the use and management of the resource. So in this particular case of Atta versus Esson, what happened was that a secondary rights holder had cultivated a piece of land, and the landowners went onto the land to harvest the proceeds. And the court held that such a practice was not in consonance with contemporary goals of entrepreneurship, and if you like, it did not support national goals of reforming land and the use of land resources. So our main observation is that mainly management rights have evolved into contractual relations, and at every point in time, there is an ascertainment by the courts of the intentions of the parties before any legal pronouncement in respect of management of land is made. Then in terms of exclusion and alienation, to be able to exclude others, you must first possess the right to access, use, and manage. And then the right to exclude outsiders who flout management rules. So if you impose certain rules on the use of a piece of land and these rules are flouted, then you can exclude outsiders from the use of that resource. And it's exercised by individual title holders, maybe people who buy the land outrightly, by clan and family heads, usufructuary holders, tenants, leasehold, and leaseholders as well. The legal findings are that title to land is indefeasible, and this was established in the case of Gihok Refrigeration Household Limited versus Hannah Asi, and that exclusion and alienation of customary land is held in the customary alludium. So you can't exclude or alienate land without the express permission of the clan or family head to which you belong. What this means is that the family heads wield the power to be able to alienate the land. And this is leading to growing abuse of that fiduciary power that has been vested in them as customary rights holders. As a result, there is increasing alienation of land that are held in the customary alludium, and the implications, and this has implications for other bundles of customary land rights, because as more and more land is sold out, then what it means is that less and less of that is available to the members of the land owning community. The question, therefore, is, will customary land rights hold? And we say that yes, Ghana's customary lands governance system has proven to be resilient over the years. Access rights remain very stable. Use rights are under stress. Exclusion and alienation rights have been redefined based on the agency model of governance that has the tacit support of the state. So as a result, the chieftaincy institution has become a convenient conduit for large-scale land transfers, and this has the potential of depriving customary usufructuaries of their rights to land in the future. Our main recommendation is that the customary land governance system has its unique fingerprints, and therefore any attempt to reform it or to engineer changes in the way the customary land governance system works should target on the unique fingerprints of that system and not seek to impose any other system of governance on the Ghanaian system. And if that is done, we believe that the governance system as it exists at present will continue to function efficiently in response to the needs of all land users. However, if we don't focus on the unique fingerprints of the customary land governance system and attempt to superimpose alternatives on it, then the contention is that it is likely to break apart. So, in a nutshell, I want to thank you all for your attention. Danke schön and merci beaucoup.